The shout now. Well done, Bobby Charlton. Well done, Manchester United.
Into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has done it! Manisar saved it! United again! Rooney! A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie!
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm Alex.
And I'm David.
So yeah, three of us joining up here just a few hours after the end of our Chelsea game today. I was actually slightly reluctant to record this one because I didn't have a huge amount of stuff to say about this match today. A bit of a drab 0-0 draw after a couple of more exciting games we've had. But I'm sure we'll find plenty to chat about in the end of it all. And there's still some interesting things on the tactical side, formations, who's playing and who's not playing actually has kind of become quite controversial all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you stay awake through this one, Alex?
Just about. I had been told that the clocks were going back this weekend, and I feel like they went back during that game. I guess at least we'll get 60 minutes of our lives back, because there wasn't a great deal to get excited about during that, was there? I guess it just felt like, this was the outcome of two teams playing each other who aren't able to find a balance between both being good going forward and being good at the back. Those games can sometimes turn out as 3-3, 4-4s. But on the flip of that, they can, of course, be bore 0-0 draws. And it was as bad a 0-0 draw as you can get, really. It was a Blackburn-Stoke 0-0 draw sort of game for me. Not a great one.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we did have some chances, whereas they literally offered nothing, which was kind of shocking. They've spent a ridiculous amount in the summer on their attack, especially Werner starting, Havertz starting.
Yep.
And, you'd think by Twitter and stuff this summer that Chelsea were going to win the league. Everybody kept going on about all these signings they'd made. But yeah, it never quite goes like that, does it? You need time to bring new players in, to adjust to each other, to adjust to the league and that kind of thing. But yeah, David, were you expecting more from us today? Or do you think a point in a kind of what is a top 4 6-pointer is okay at the end of the day?
I think in the grand scheme of things and over the last 3 games, if you'd offered us 7 points out of 9 from Newcastle, PSG, Chelsea, I personally would have bit your hand off for it after that Spurs result. So taken in that context, not too bad, but I did expect us to just hurt them a little bit more. I think there was an opportunity there to get the 3 points, but for whatever reason, both teams just decided to put on an exhibition of boring football. I think today, more than any other game, I think we saw what difference it can make with having no fans in the stadium. I think at least after an hour of watching that dross, I think the Stretford end would hopefully had some of the players thinking, we need to try something here. But it was just an absolute snooze fest. One of the more boring top 4 teams, I guess, say that in quotations. One of the more boring games I've watched between 2 big teams. Was pretty happy for it to be over, but trying to find the positives. I think it shows that Chelsea paid us in our recent upturn in form a little bit of respect by setting up the way that they did. They basically played the way we played against PSG, but against us with 5 at the back and not trying to counter too much and leave themselves out of position. But all in all, take the point, move on, and ready for the next game.
Yeah, I think both managers, both Ollie and Lampard, essentially second guessed each other. I think Lampard thought he would be matching us with 5 at the back, and I think Ollie probably expected Frank to think he'd be playing 5 at the back, and that maybe played a part in him playing 4. At the end of the day, both managers were more than happy with both the draw and the clean sheet, and it was quite telling that I haven't seen all of the post-match press conferences yet, but I did manage to catch a little bit, and Ollie was asked about the midfield that he chose today with Fred and McTominay, and he straight away referred back to the game that we won in Paris last time around. And he said that after that game, we played Arsenal, we lost the game against Arsenal, and our momentum just took a huge hit. And for the next 12 games after that, we had some terrible form. And I think that was quite telling to me that he was probably overly cautious, that he didn't want the win against Newcastle and PSG just to be lost in one fell swoop, and then for us to be going into Leipzig and Arsenal, with that confidence not hit. And I guess that's, I can understand that logic to a degree, because this team does seem to be so mentally fragile, in that we do go on these long drawn out stretches of winning every game or really struggling to get a win. Our teams are so up and down, and there's a lot of purple patches in there. So, I can understand that cautiousness, but I agree with David that there probably was an opportunity here for us to try and take advantage of that respect shown and the lineup that we played, and we just never really, even with the substitutes that we made, turned the needle and put the pressure on them, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, we did look like the most likely to win this game, and we had the best chances and by far the most chances. I think Chelsea literally I think they had one shot on target, and it was even nothing that troubled De Gea in any way, whereas their keepers made at least 2, if not 3, pretty good saves. And yeah, look, we did create chances, just nothing outstanding.
Very few.
A couple from Rashford.
Yeah, very few, but yeah, I definitely more than them. And I guess as the home team, you would somewhat expect that. Obviously, home doesn't mean so much anymore.
Well, that's actually the thing, isn't it? That home has even been a struggle for us. We've won something like 10 away games in a row, not counting neutral grounds, but we've struggled at home, having lost to Palace and Tottenham. Chelsea have also been struggling at the back, so I think both teams were really trying to go for defensive solidity today and not wanting to lose this game. First clean sheet for us in the league this season, and I think probably for Chelsea as well, I think. But yeah, as I say, we definitely deserved much more from this game than we did. I've seen a lot of people talking about what an awful performance it was. I mean, yeah, it was nowhere near great, and it was definitely boring. But yeah, I've seen us play a lot worse than that, even just a couple of weeks ago. If you think this was an awful performance, then what was it when we lost 6-1 to Spurs a fortnight ago? So yeah, I do think people go a bit out over the top in what, after all, is a pretty difficult match. I do think the whole kind of Solskjaer versus Lampard thing is quite interesting, because it's become constant comparisons, because they both kind of started their first full seasons last year, both kind of old club legends, and being given a chance to come back in management. And at the moment, Ole is 3-1 up, because we did play them 4 times last season, and this is the first time we've had a draw there. So I think Lampard was definitely wary of the fact that Ole had got the better of him a few times, and he did not want to see again his team get hit on the counter, on the transition, and they was totally protecting against that. But yeah, if we look everybody's really interested in what the lineup and formation was going to be, because obviously we had a pretty decent performance against Newcastle last week, then went out to Paris and changed it to 3 at the back, and then I think a lot of people were hoping we were going to stick with that. So did you think we were going to stick with that, Alex, or were you not surprised that we went back to a normal 4-man defence?
I thought, in all honesty, I did think that we would stick with 5 at the back. Depending on what has happened to Tellez, I don't know where he's disappeared to. I don't know if that's been explained yet, but that obviously makes it a little bit trickier, because I totally expected us to play 5 at the back and look to counter them. It doesn't feel like whatever we would have done, though, Chelsea would have been moving out of their shape or particularly putting pressure on us. There was that period, 10th to 20th minute of the game, where they had like 75% plus possession, but they still did very little. They still didn't want to, push men forward and, like you say, open themselves up to that counter that has been their undoing against us before. So I'm not sure how much difference that would have made. I think the key one for me was probably that, Daniel James inclusion. Now, last year he came on against Chelsea in his debut. He scored in that 4-0 win. And I think in that early period, there was a couple of shots from the left, couple of goals from the left, felt like sort of rockets, but maybe adrenaline from joining the club. But the one thing he did show he was capable of doing during that period was, if we put the ball in behind for him to run onto, no one's catching up with that boy. And as long as you make it incredibly easy for him, where it's a case of shoot or play a square ball, he'd always go for the square, safer ball. He's now going to take the responsibility of shooting himself. And he played those balls very well. But as soon as I saw that back line from them today, with the 5 at the back their side and Thiago Silva in the middle, which made me assume that it would be quite a deep one, with the protection in front of them, you could see that wasn't going to be the case. And he's not really shown anything for a long time now to be starting this game. I guess the challenge that you have is that who do you play instead? Because if you were to play someone like a Van der Beek when you've got Mata on the other side, where's that natural width coming from? With, let's be fair, the inability to go forward of the fullbacks who are playing today. So I think that lack of Tellez really created a bit of a problem for us, both playing 5 at the back, but also, if you were going to play 4 at the back, who you would play on that left-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to see James start this game. He started against Newcastle and he had quite a lot of the ball in good positions. I said it at the time that he was very wasteful, taking the wrong decision, always running into blind alleys, and I thought he was absolutely awful again. And one of the main issues on where our attack was breaking down time and time again. I think Ole, either he absolutely loves Dan James, or this is all about the fact that obviously we did not buy a winger in the summer and he doesn't feel then he's got that many options and he wants to play that kind of player. I mean, Greenwood apparently we're told is coming just back from injury. Like you say, Van de Beek is not a winger. Cavani's not really ready to start yet. So yeah, that's the only kind of slight idea you can have on why he started there. But David, I mean, can you understand why Dan James starts here, and do you expect him to start another game? Because I don't.
Yeah, obviously he started because he won some kind of competition during the lockdown. So his career at Man United to me so far is a bit like a movie. He's wandered into our club and thought, how lucky am I to be here from Swansea? He's came on his debut, scored against Chelsea, looked really good, things were great. It was like, this is one of the bargains of the transfer window. And then since then, reality has struck, and he does not belong in that team. Even sliding him in behind and hitting teams on the... Honestly, I messaged one of my mates during the game. I was like, are you watching this? He said, yep. I was like, tell me honestly, if Dan James had no speed, what do you think his profession would be? And he was like, probably in IT or something like that. Just, he's so far away from the level required. There was a couple of times today where he actually looked like he might be threatening. He advanced towards their box and then just did nothing. Didn't try a pass, didn't try and shoot. Just like he's kind of, what do I do now? That like, he hasn't progressed whatsoever. He's so safe. I saw Fred getting severely annoyed with him today in the first half because Fred was looking for the pass into feet. It was clear that the run-in behind wasn't on. Fred passes it, and as Fred passes it, Dan James moves to run in behind, just so unaware of what his teammates are doing. I can't think that there wasn't a better setup, especially with the players on the bench, than having Dan James on the left-hand side today. Like, I would have rather have had Pogba there or Bruno there, and Pogba in Bruno's position. Just anything else. Like, I don't see it, especially the way Chelsea's set up. I don't see what Ole was thinking having him in there today. It's not like he's going to help out too much defensively. Reece James is a good player, but he's not the most attacking fullback. And when we saw their lineup, like Havertz he's not really hit the ground running yet, but he's a good player. But he was set up as a right winger today, pretty ineffective for him. He's almost a pure number 10 or support striker. I just can't see why it took so long to. Honestly, I would have subbed him in the first half. It just wasn't working, and as soon as we saw how Chelsea were set up, should have been like, we're going to have a better way to exploit this team than by having Dan James in the squad. But for me, he's very fortunate to be. I mean, you think of Van de Beek. Van de Beek's not playing and Dan James is. What is Donny Van de Beek thinking when he sees that? He's just nowhere near the required
they're not the
stuff.
same position.
I know they're not the same position, but it's still like, I would have rather played Van de Beek. I would have rather played him left wing than Dan James. He's shocking. He's just nowhere near good enough.
Well, I think now that as Greenwood comes back from injury, as Cavani gets fitter, that there won't really be a need for him to play again. But it is an interesting question. It's one that everybody's been asking, and I even saw Patrice Ever asking, where is Donny van de Beek and why is he not getting a game? To me, though, I actually think it's pretty obvious why he's not getting a game. And it's because, we talked about this earlier on podcast, that he's been brought in primarily as cover for Bruno and Pogba. And at the moment, Pogba is not even getting in the team and is on the bench. So that's why Van de Beek is even further down the line. And to me, that's just obvious. And I can't understand why everybody's falling about the place saying, why isn't Van de Beek getting a game?
But you make use of your squad, and Van de Beek did play on the left a number of times for Ajax over the last few years. So he's shown that he can play in that position. And he's also shown that he's, an intelligent player who's got really good movement off the ball. He's tidy, he works hard. So you could be confident that he would track back. So for me, he would have still been preferable over James. Although it does seem that he, other than Bruno, it takes some time for players to prove themselves. One, I think he's quite cautious about bedding in a player early and introducing them to the league, and he seems to be quite cautious of that. But also, it just seems to take a bit of time for players to really win him round and to gain his trust. We've seen that with a number of players under him. But once they have it, they generally seem to stick. I mean, I don't want to spend too long on Dan James, but there was that moment where he was running into the box, David, I think you referred to it, and the ball's just under his feet, and he's just like looking around at his various options, and in the end, he just does nothing with it.
No confidence whatsoever.
I don't know if any of you get this, but when I'm on Netflix and I'm trying to find a movie to watch, and there's just so many movies that I just get like choice paralysis and I end up just picking nothing and don't end up watching anything. I just end up going to sleep a couple of hours later after not doing anything with my time. It just feels like he seems to have that all the time. There's just no confidence, no courage, no brain, sadly. I mean, I'm sure there's heart, but other than that, he's needing Dorothy and a yellow brick road at this point, because I just don't understand why he's still getting in this team.
But yeah, anyway, look, we're all pretty much agreed. Dan James should not be in the team anymore, and I think he won't be. Like I say, Greenwood's coming back in, Cavani's going to get fitter. The one interesting thing, like I say, is all about Van der Beek and whether he can play these kind of wide positions. He is supposed to be more of a number 10 or a number 8, but we've seen Juan Mata also was supposed to be a number 10 and has played almost exclusively kind of wide for like years now. So yeah, you're right. Van der Beek is a player who is known to be flexible and adaptable. So yeah, why not if he needs to come and get minutes there? But yeah, I'm sure he will get a lot of game time during this season. It's just we are pretty well stacked in midfield. And like I say, when even Paul Pogba's on the bench, then that's why it's difficult for Van der Beek to get any game time at the moment. So yeah, we'll see from there what goes. But yeah, as I say, look, we did still make some chances, and it was their keeper who was making the difference. But if we look on the bright side, we've kept a clean sheet, and there was big question marks over our defence. Just a few weeks ago, with people even talking about Harry Maguire needs to be given a rest, he shouldn't be playing. And then, of course, he came in, had that epic performance with a goal against Newcastle, was then rested for Paris and came back in again. And I actually thought, that our central defence looked pretty damn good today. Like I say, Chelsea has spent a lot of money on Werner, Havertz, and they had nothing at all, like literally not even one save for David De Gea to make. So yeah, that is the big kind of positive from the game today.
They did look good, but they were wrapped in bubble wrap in that they had fullbacks either side of them who weren't getting forward. They had Fred and McTominay sat in front constantly on the cover. We were sitting a bit deeper than usual, and just Chelsea had no interest in attacking. So they did look good, but at the same time, it was the issue that we had last season at times, where it's like we're sacrificing our attack to protect and make our defense look good. And that period, where people talk about our defense last season being, third best or whatever it was. To me, a lot of that season we were sacrificing attack and incredibly poor going forwards, and that was what facilitated that. And as soon as we try and start getting on the ball more, turning the heat up on teams and actually attacking them, then we see leaks in our defence, and that's when our players' ability really comes into question. We just still haven't found that balance between the two yet. It seems to be one or the other so often.
Yeah, and I do think that it's definitely I'd said this after we had our Newcastle team out, that it seems that Ole definitely blamed the midfield for how many goals we were conceding. It wasn't necessarily down to the defence and just the complete lack of protection. It's why he shifted from Matic and Pogba to this McFred midfield, who are, super solid, but have now played kind of 3 games in a row and will surely have to have a rest at some point themselves.
They did look tired today. I thought them two and Bruno together looked tired as a trio in the middle.
Yeah, and they've started 3 matches in a row in the space of a week, so it's not that unsurprising. And then that's the problem now when we go next game against Leipzig, game after that against Arsenal. There's going to have to be some kind of changes and rotation. So yeah, I'm sure Van der Beek or Pogba, Matic, there is going to be chances for other people to come in there. But yeah, look, that is the main positive from the day, is like not conceding for like the first time. I didn't have much faith in us keeping a clean sheet today, so I've got Luke Shaw in my fantasy team, but he's sat on the bench and not going to be giving me any points, which just adds to my absolute nightmare start to the fantasy Premier League this year. I know, Alex, you've already been talking about what kind of gap you've got from me, right? And don't think I'm going to be making it up this
Yeah,
week, to be honest.
100 plus point gap at the moment, I think, which pretty shocking this early into the season, let's be fair.
Yeah, it really is. I say, from something like 20 years of playing fantasy football, this is about the worst start I've ever had. But it has been just, it goes back to what a prize that City have drawn with West Ham, and there's other results like that coming out there. But yeah, look, let's go back to the match there. I mean, David, the changes came in, which were Pogba and Cavani coming on. So yeah, a lot of interest in seeing Cavani coming in for his debut. What were your thoughts on his first kind of half an hour or so in a United shirt?
Obviously, if that shot of his is a couple inches to the right, then it's the dream start for him. Watching the replay of that chance, I was quite happy to see his movement. Like, he comes for the run at the front post and then it doesn't come to him, but he sees that it's on again. So it was good to see that kind of intelligence, but I guess not too surprised by that, because he is a very, very intelligent player and has excellent movement. He obviously did not get into the game at all after that. I think I saw a stat, he had one pass and it was unsuccessful. But that was just the way the game was for everyone on the pitch. No one did anything of note whatsoever. So pretty hard to judge him on anything other than that chance that he had, which showed good awareness in the box. And then Pogba's change is, again, you expect him to come on, and he's, the rest of the guys have been out there for an hour. Not that they were trying their hardest or expending too much energy, but you'd still expect someone as good as him to come on and change the game. Like, he's shown that ability before to take a big game. Like, remember what he did against City away when they were on their way to winning the league, and then Pogba just like, you know what, I'm a world-class midfielder, I'm going to turn it on. He is capable of doing that today, but for whatever reason, he failed to rise to the occasion as well. So I think they were the right subs, probably.
I just think Chelsea just, defended very well, just blocked us out completely. I don't necessarily put it down to us playing that poorly, but they just, nullified us completely, really.
Ish. Like, I agree with that, and I think it would have been hard to break down that Chelsea team, kind of whatever, but at the same time, there was no urgency from us to try. It felt like the whole game was played at walking pace.
No. Remember Pogba getting into the box for his header against Man City, the one that kind of came off the back of his head. Like that was
2-0 down in that game with nothing to lose. You can't compare it to being like 0-0, finally poised in a game. You can't stop going for that kind of thing at 0-0, otherwise you'll concede one at the other end.
That's the thing. He's that type of player that he has the ability to change a game, whether it's with his passing or whether it's getting in the box and making a nuisance of himself. He has the ability to try something different, and as we know with him, sometimes he tries stuff and it doesn't come off.
Yeah, and in fact, in the last two matches, it is actually when he's come off the bench that we've actually ended up winning games. And I think both points we were 1-1 in those games, Newcastle and PSG. And it's actually when he's come off the bench that we have ended up winning. So, I think it's something that Ole has played towards, saying, look, we'll start totally solid with like the solid like McFred midfield. And then when people are getting a bit tighter, let Pogba come in and see what he can do. Well, again, look, we had a couple of chances. Basically, Rashford had that one chance late on and one early on, and Mata had one good shot as well. But apart from that, there wasn't that much going on. I know what you mean, but I don't particularly say that it's down to Pogba not performing or anything. I just say it's generally, a tired 3 games, and even Chelsea as well have been, played midweek in Europe, and it was actually pissing it down as well, like those kind of conditions that not exactly conducive to like a great game of football.
It'd be great if that's what Ollie was trying to do, turn Pogba into the new Solskjaer super sub for United moving forward. I do agree, Nick. We're not claiming that United should have thrown caution to the wind and thrown ourselves forward in abandon here. We're saying that Pogba himself probably could have come on and got on the ball more and tried to drive things forward. And it looked like he came on and just straight away, his level just came down to the pace of the game, which was, walking pace, everyone kind of just accepting the 0-0. That's what it felt like to me. I also do have personally a bit of an issue with Pogba being so far up the pitch at times. Like, I don't think he's great with his back to goal, despite his skill and size. I think he needs to play in front of him. But we also, I think everyone in the world agrees and knows that he's probably not best suited in a deep midfield pivot either. So it's finding that balance between the two. And just, yeah, for me, he came on, slowed us down. And I guess in part, it wasn't just him coming on, but also Mata going off, because for me, Mata was the one player who was keeping things ticking, speeding up the pace of the play, offering constant movement, because it was one of those games where it wasn't pass and move, but it was pass and stay from a lot of players, and he was probably the one real exception to that with Bruno. So it was probably the loss of Mata as well. I thought that was probably the wrong player to be bringing off personally.
Yeah, and also when Mata goes off, and we've seen this the last couple of matches as well, that Pogba comes into kind of more or less Bruno's position, and Bruno is the one that's then getting shunted out wide, isn't he? Saw him, I think against Newcastle, he kind of went out left, whereas today he's gone out right, and then you see quite little from him there. I don't think he's that happy playing in that kind of position. But as you say, also he's looking very tired, and unsurprisingly after having played 3 matches in a week. But it is interesting that he's the one that gets moved, and Pogba kind of slots in over there, and there still is this question mark that we thought last season was kind of solved. Like, before we bought Bruno, where people were all talking about, can Pogba and Bruno play in the same team and thrive together? And we did have that period where the answer was yes, they can do. But again, now this season, that's becoming a bit of a question mark on how they both get fit in the team together and whether they can fit in and we still have enough balance in the team. How do you see it, David? Do you think those two can be starting games together and doing the business, or is it just too unbalanced?
I think we need to see more of you probably need a run of games for them, right? I don't think they've started 3 games in a row together. I might be wrong on that.
Well, they did. They started all the games at the start of the season when we were awful, and that was the problem. But then Ole changed it.
Jeez.
That was it. They started this season, but there was a lot of kind of question marks over Pogba. Was he fit? Should he have been playing? I think in hindsight, he shouldn't have been playing in those matches, and he's maybe only out now, coming into like anywhere near full fitness. We'll see. At some point, I'm sure they will start a match again, and then we'll see. Because we said last season we did see them do it.
It was like immediately post lockdown. Do you think you have to take that period with a pinch of salt? If you remember, it was also where we won. Was it 4 games in a row where we scored 3 goals, and it was the first time in our Premier League history to have done that or something, which, whilst, in one sense it showed how good we were post-lockdown, I think it also probably alluded to the fact that it was just a bit of a bizarre time with a load of teams coming in with, a lack of intensity, a lack of fitness, and it was fair play to Ollie and to the United players that we were prepared for it and that we were still at 100%. It enabled us to play 2 players together who maybe you wouldn't expect to be able to offer us that balance. At the same time, Matic in those games, because there wasn't that pressure and intensity, he was able to marshal, he was able to be that defensive anchor, and there's question marks over whether he's really capable of doing that role in half the games we play. It really depends on the opposition. Maybe it's a case of you get a new Mata and you get a player who's an in-between of McTominay and Fred, because unfortunately one offers all the energy and tenacity and the other one is the one who offers the stability. If you can get someone who can bring both to the table, maybe it does enable us to play Bruno and Pogba together, but at the moment we just don't really have that.
Yep, I agree with that. I think if you take Leicester version of Kante or first season version at Chelsea Kante, then you can play Bruno and Pogba together. But I love McTominay and I love Fred. Like I do genuinely like the two of them together in midfield. But if you want to get the best of Bruno and Pogba, then you can only play one of them. And I don't think either of them offers enough as like a pure destroyer defensive midfielder. And I don't see many of those out there anymore. It's kind of almost like a dying position somewhat. But I think you need someone that the forward-thinking players know is going to clear up anything on the break, and we don't have a player that can sit right now on their own. Matic is, I love him, but he's too old to play that role on his own. And then that way to me right now it's Bruno or Pogba, not both, just because of the imbalance of the other part of the squad. I think after seeing Maguire and Lindelof's performance today, as little as Chelsea offered, I think that a lot of that is down to how well they kind of bossed the defence. There was a couple of times early in the first half where someone tried to slide a pass into Werner's feet, and either both Lindelof and Maguire had read it, stepped in front and just snuffed it out. That was good to see. So I think if the confidence in our backline grows, it just makes the midfield think we don't need to be as cautious, and maybe we can get 5 or 10 yards further forward. And that's when you start to see the best of our more forward-thinking players. But I think our midfield in general, it's one of these really good problems to have. I mean, we could put out Matic, Pogba and Van de Beek against Leipzig, and I don't think that's a bad midfield at all. I actually think it's reasonably well balanced. We have 6 really, really good centre midfielders, one, arguably 2, who are world class, and then the rest who can fill a role, but we're still just missing that one guy who can just be there on his own and let the other guys play without having to worry too much about what's behind them.
You were referring to McFred with the world class ones, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
McSauce and Fred.
Thought so. I think some players just look like they need a bit of a break. Maybe they just need to go to another sport, like Maguire's done this week while the boys are in Paris. He was over at the WWE, wasn't he? Brought some moves back with him and brought them into his football. So maybe we just need a couple of other players doing a similar sort of thing.
Maybe we can send Dan James to a football camp.
Yeah, I was going to just skirt over that penalty shout. I wasn't really going to mention it, but yeah, but I mean, yeah, to be fair, as you know, as I say, week in, week out, I just think VAR is a total joke, and that every week things are missed and every week there's still controversy, and I just think the whole thing is totally pointless, but looks like it's here to stay at the moment. But no, look, generally, as I say, that midfield, it's good in one way that we've got so many options and have looked about strong and depth in midfield that we have done for a long time. But at the same time, there's still this question mark over what is our best 11. And at the start of the season, I think most people thought it was going to be Matic, Pogba, Bruno, because that's how we ended last season and looked very good. All of a sudden, we had a few awful games, and Pogba and Matic have dropped out for McFred, and it's a totally different style. So yeah, it is kind of interesting to see where we go with that midfield now. But yeah, again, as I said, that was our best kind of period of football under Ole, and probably post Fergie is when we had Matic, Pogba and Bruno. And in fact, David, we'll pick out this because I remember at the end of last season, I'm usually the most positive member of the United Hour team, whereas you were actually usurped me because you were talking about saying that you thought we were going to be making a title challenge this year, and you were very excited about it, I remember. And then
I think we had a bet, or were meant to have a bet.
Yeah, you were even offering, saying that you were ready to be putting money on us coming, second and close to the top.
Oh, there's a bet somewhere. One of you can go back the 3,000 or so WhatsApp messages to find it. It won't be me.
Yeah, it was me and Ed, but you were talking of a bet. But I think, in fairness, you did say let's see how our transfer window pans out. I think.
But yeah, look, you were very, very bullish, more even than me. And then I think a couple of weeks ago, you went complete about turn and started talking about saying that you thought we needed to get rid of Ole. And I was just kind of shocked on how somebody could go from one extreme to the other within just a few matches. So I think you're going to have to explain yourself and tell us where you are now with everything with Ole and that kind of thing.
So it was, it was, I won't call it too much of an overreaction to the Spurs game, because the Spurs game was shockingly bad. And for me, it wasn't that I don't think he can be successful. It's just that I just didn't see enough tactical nous from him to line up against certain teams in certain situations. It's like he just has one or two ways of playing, and it's go out, play the United way, don't worry about the opposition and what they're doing, and it's not the way to do it. There should be a tactical approach for every single game, and the more that his tenure goes on, I just don't see that from him. So for me, it was more a case of I think we might be better off with someone else that can actually take this squad to its full potential, as opposed to having someone
but what I want to understand is that at the end of last season, you were saying this Ole is the guy for us and he's going to be making a title challenge. Then within 2 matches of this season, you turn to Ole out. So what happened in 2 matches compared to the end of last season?
It was such a shit show in those 2 matches. That was it. And I mean, you can put it down to it's COVID football, right? I mean, every league in Europe is having shock results and stuff that just doesn't make sense. So you can put it down to that. I did once I saw his lineup against PSG and the way that he executed that. It makes me hope that he's going to have some tactical approach going forward. But if you compare it to the manager that we're going to be facing in Leipzig, Nagelsmann, he is so far ahead of Solskjaer tactically, it's not even funny. There doesn't seem to be too much of a style. We still don't have a style, despite having enough players we have 2 players for every position, and there's just still not enough style there. And I obviously want the guy to succeed, and I think he can do relatively well with this squad. I just don't think there's enough imagination from a coaching perspective. So as much as I was all in, like, this is amazing, we could potentially challenge for the league next season. I mean, we've seen what's happened so far. I still don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that even with Solskjaer at the helm, we can still go on and challenge. I think this is a season that's up for grabs for anyone. But it's more a case of believing we can be better and more cohesive and have a more identifiable strategy under another more proven coach when it comes to tactics. It's more a case of that as opposed to like being against Solskjaer and Solskjaer out. It's just thinking that there's someone out there who can take this squad of players better, get more from them, and put out a first 11 week in, week out that just has a clear, identifiable strategy. And I don't think Solskjaer has had that.
Well, I've heard this from a lot of people, and I just think it's absolute nonsense, right? That I just can't understand how people don't see by now what our strategy is, and especially on the kind of runs of games we've gone. And he's actually got an outstanding big game record as well, which is why I also find it weird that people talk about that he doesn't have any tactical knowledge. And time again, he's won the big games against who apparently are the biggest and best managers in the world. You know, Guardiola, Tuchel, Mourinho, time and time again, he's beaten them all. Whereas people still keep coming out and saying that Ole lacks tactical knowledge. It doesn't make sense after you see the record he's got in the big matches. I just still don't understand how anyone can come out with that. I do agree that there is still some question marks over us not having like some kind of clear philosophy. But even then, like for me, I do see clearly what our philosophy is. And yeah, there is a bit too much focus on being fast in the transition and going for kind of counter-attacking football. But we've seen it work very well for us, and even going on a run of games against big teams, small teams. For a while we were only winning the big matches and struggling in the others. Whereas now, we are often beating teams that you'd say should beat, like as in Newcastle last week and teams like that. So yeah, I've heard these kind of things coming out all the time, and I just don't agree with it in the slightest. And like I say, I do find it like a bit strange that there's still so many people going on about Ole out and whatever.
We're 15th.
Yeah, we're 15th. We've got a game in hand. If we win it, we're like 5th or something. It's like early days in the season. We're like 1 point behind Manchester City. We win this match. Like I say, we're like 5th, 6th, something like that. So it's a bit silly to start talking about that we're 15th. Like literally, we've got one game in hand. We're 1 point behind Manchester City. And, I don't think anybody's talking about Pep out, to be honest. And like I say as well, you like compare between Ole and Lampard. If we win our game in hand, we're on the same, more or less, I think 1 point behind Chelsea, something like that. So we're in this similar position to any of. There's nobody like way out in front this season. And there's going to be a lot, even next week, our next big match is Arsenal again, which is another kind of 6-pointer against somebody around us. And we have to see where we go from there. So I think people start talking about that we're 15th and got this many points is absolutely stupid at this point in the season, to be honest. And as I said, the only reason I wanted to really pick it up was because I've not seen such an about change in somebody's kind of view of Ole in such a short space of time.
That's what a 6-1 against Tottenham will do to someone's mental health. It was like I'd say a lot of it was just a reaction to that result, and I'm happy for the guy to stay in charge. It's just I feel like that squad of players, there's so much more to get from them, and maybe he will be the guy to get it from them. It's just it needs to be.
I mean, it was a bit silly, like total overreaction on our start to the season, just because it's all about our disjointed pre-season that we didn't basically have one. And we've seen the other teams who went deep in Europe struggling as well. It's never been like that before. And you see all the teams, apart from Bayern Munich, who are still smashing everybody out of the park. Even Paris, like struggling, City struggling, us struggling at the start. But now you see, now we felt like we have had our pre-season and are getting into some kind of gear. So yeah, now I think you'd really see what we can do, and just write off that kind of start to the season as being a bit of a mess. That's the way I see it, basically.
Here's hoping. It's just that Solskjaer's term has been one step forward and then two flying kicks to the throat. It's a pessimistic approach, a lot of it, because I at the end of last season I was thinking, no, we're going to finish third, and I said it. The last game against Leicester's we're going to mean something. It's just, I don't know, man. COVID has changed so much of what you expect and what you don't expect from teams just now. But that the opening day defeat was shocking. The game against Spurs was shocking. So if we take our season as a whole right now, yes, it's early doors, but there's still enough concern there in terms of what is this squad going to be like moving forward, and is there an opportunity there while everyone else is struggling and in some sort of transition period, getting used to this weird season? Could we have taken that squad of players and got more from them, and why didn't we? That's my only thing, but obviously onwards and upwards.
I'll say why didn't we? Because we had no pre-season, and that's why it was all a mess at the start, and now we see that we're playing a lot better.
You always do like to pigeon someone into that Ollie in or out box, and it's just not really ever as simple as that.
No, but David wrote Ole out. He actually wrote Ole out after saying he thought we were going to win the league 2 months before that. So yeah, I'm not making it up. That's actually what happened. So yeah, as I say, but yeah, no, I know with you, I've tried and push, and you've never really been Ole out, but you've been Ole sitting on the fence somewhere, I think.
I've never thought he should be sacked. I never thought he's done enough to be sacked. At the point that you give him the job, I think you have to understand, the limitations that he's got, the lack of experience that he's got, and you have to accept that it's going to be, it's going to take time to turn that around, that he's going to get things wrong, and that, he's going to somewhat need to be coached and guided through that with the various mentors that he's got within the club right now. And I think at this point, there's definitely an element of, if we were to get rid of Ole, there might always be that niggle in the back of your mind of what could have been. So, I would like to see that through. I think he did more than enough last season to get backing from the board in the end, and he didn't get that backing. And if the board then keeps him in his position to next summer and he gets the backing next summer, seen as a long-term thing, then this window doesn't look that bad. But if he has a bit of a wobble this season because one of the situation that we're in, the bizarre circumstances that every team's in, combined with the lack of attention that we spent in the window, both who we bought, how many we bought, the quality that we bought, the positions that we filled, then that would obviously then be really disappointing, because it's like we set him up for failure, basically.
Yeah, that's totally fair. As I say, and I don't see how anybody puts that on Ole. It's only on the board for failing him, basically. Like you say, that's the way I see it. I don't see he could have done any more last season, finishing third. Yeah, he could have won a cup, actually. Going out in those semi-finals, or at least got a final, was disappointing. That's the only thing he could have done a bit more. But finishing third was basically about as good as he could have managed. So after that, I think he deserves a lot more respect than he's getting from a lot. And I'm still always surprised at the amount of Ole out shouts I see around. Just like, for me, it's just a bit bizarre. Yeah, glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Back on.
Ole in for now.
For now, until next week, until next week. But yeah, let's look ahead to next week, because it's not getting any easier. After doing away with Paris Saint-Germain, we now got RB Leipzig coming up, who were Champions League semi-finalists last year. And David, you mentioned Nagelsmann, their manager, and he is quite a story in himself. I mean, he's only 33 years old and has taken that team to the Champions League semi-final. I think Reece as well has talked of him as well as somebody he would like to be like a future Man United manager and that kind of thing. So I think that's somebody you said you followed yourself in kind of his trajectory, have you?
Yep. So if he doesn't end up as like in the like great managers of all time list, then it's just because something weird happened. He's one of the most tactically astute coaches anywhere in the world right now, and to be doing what he's doing at 33, it's crazy. But it's he was I don't know if you guys know, or if most of the listeners will know some of his story. He suffered quite a bad injury, decided to pursue higher education, switched out of business into sports science, then just put himself through these coaching badges, and then from there, mid to late 20s, it just became obvious to the guys who give it the UEFA badges that he was going to be something pretty special. He gets a job off the back of that, and then before you know it, he's, I think, still in his 20s, was named like the manager of the year in Germany by not like the official panel, but someone else. The award has a reasonable amount of prestige.
Yeah, I think it was at Hoffenheim then, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
at Hoffenheim. Like, he took them from like 18th, I think it was, down and out, and they finished in the top half of the table, no problem. But he's just so good tactically. The way he's going to set up against us, he'll know exactly the way to attack Wan-Bissaka to potentially get by him. He'll know how to play around their midfield. He'll know that he can exploit Lindelof and Maguire or whoever it is with pace in behind. He's just going to be set up to exploit all of our weaknesses, and he does it week in, week out against every team he plays. Like, he doesn't just say, this is our style, go out and win. He has a plan for every single team, even like the cannon fodder teams in the Bundesliga that he comes up against. So at their training ground in Leipzig, they have at the side of the pitch, it's this big, massive jumbo screen, and it has they have cameras and drones flying all around the training ground, and then they'll be doing like a tactical drill, and then they'll just stop, and then everyone will just watch what's happening on the big screen, and then he'll be able to demonstrate what he expects, what he wants, where the mistakes are coming from. And it is kind of like he's revolutionised the whole training approach. And the thing I love about him as well is that, and I know I'm kind of getting a bit hard on for him here, but the thing I love about him is that he recognises his age. He recognises that he's actually younger than some of the playing squad. And there's a term in Germany, I forget what they are, but there's two ways to greet someone. One is kind of like the formal way of almost saying like sir. The other way is just like saying like hello, you. And he asks all his players to address him as like the more informal way, because he doesn't want to be seen as too much of above them and too much like, oh, I'm the manager, I'm in charge. He still wants to respect the fact that he's a young manager, he's learning the game, and he just asks his player to trust him. But I can almost guarantee that they will, for large portions of this game, play us off of the park, because he knows exactly how we are going to set up, because he does his homework like no other coach has done. And that's what I want to see in Solskjaer, is that kind of methodical approach where every single team that we come up against gets analysed, and how can we exploit their weaknesses.
But David, he's beaten every single top manager that he's come up against.
And struggled against the cannon fodder. That's the
but
point.
you're saying that you want to see him come up and like against the top teams, and he's done it every single time.
Well, not every single time.
Well, more than pretty much anybody before. Like, there isn't anybody who's got that good a record in the big matches.
But we continually struggle against smaller teams, and maybe that is what is separating us from being proper title contenders and being where we are, which is a top 4 team, because we can't break down those other teams, because we can't exploit their weaknesses, because we go on with this approach as, oh, we should just beat them, as opposed to working out what their actual weaknesses are and exactly how we can exploit them. We just have this pattern of play that is, let's just hope something good happens and we can get a break in behind. Nagelsmann will find those weaknesses. He will know exactly what player is going to do.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this game. You've talked him up a lot now, and from what I understand, I say I'm no expert on the Bundesliga, but he comes from that same kind of Klopp school of thought of high pressing, and he did actually work under Thomas Tuchel when he was younger, as far as I understand. So he's kind of, again, that's somebody who's been working under and bringing those kind of styles in.
Well, that's easy then, because Ollie just beat Thomas Tuchel.
That's exactly why I mentioned it.
No problem.
So he is a kind of disciple of Tuchel, or not disciple, but he's somebody who's learned something from him earlier on in his career and has come up there. But he's doing damn well at Leipzig for sure. To get to the Champions League semi-final is amazing. And some people don't even know, the story of Leipzig. Like, this club is only 11 years old. They were formed in the year 2009, and it's quite a kind of controversial story in Germany, because Red Bull came in, bought some lower league German team, threw some money at it, got them promoted up to the Bundesliga in like 5-6 years, and they've been then challenging in the Bundesliga pretty quickly. And it is big controversy in Germany, which is a league where normally clubs are run by the kind of fans. There's this rule of 50+1 where they don't normally take outside investment that much, and it's not anywhere near as much of a business as the Premier League is. Whereas Red Bull come in and are 99% owners of this club, and even though officially their name is Rasenball and Sport Leipzig, but everybody knows that the RB really stands for Red Bull, and it's only
it's just the Salford of Germany.
Well, but to be fair to them as well, it's not like a kind of sugar daddy scenario like a Chelsea or a City where they've just spent millions and millions. They have actually spent money very well and built well, and like you say, come in with like great young coach like Nagelsmann, and so look, it is going to be a very interesting match. But as I say, I know I've got a few good German friends of mine who are big fans, and they do say that it's a very controversial club. When they were first formed and first came into the Bundesliga, there was a lot of protests from other fans about the club in general, and they're really hated around and seen as this kind of plastic manufactured club that have come in, and they're not happy that they've been challenging and taking those Champions League places from more historic clubs there. So we'll see. But they lost Werner in the summer. That was one of their big players, and they didn't even bring in anybody that much. Their big kind of signing was actually Sorloth, who was awful at Crystal Palace for a while, then went and scored a shitload of goals in Turkey and has come into their squad. But I think he probably won't even be starting because they've got this massive 6'5" Danish centre forward, Poulsen, who seems to have taken Werner's place there. They've also got Angelino from Man City, who's on loan over there. He scored a couple of goals in the Champions League last week. So he's on form for them. They beat Istanbul in their first game. So this is actually a top of the table clash in our group, seeing as we both won our first match. So it's going to be an absolute vital one to see where we go in this group. And when we last recorded just before, I think 3 out of the 4 of us were saying we're not going to get out of this group, whereas I was the only one who was confident that we were going to qualify from the group. So we've obviously started well, but still a long way to go yet. And this Leipzig game, like you say, tactically was going to be very interesting, seeing as you've talked him up massively, David. So what, are you thinking that he's going to be too good to outwit Ole, are you? You're expecting us to lose this match?
I do. I expect us to lose. Unless Ole goes in having done his homework in the way that they play it, I would expect us to lose. They are a frighteningly good team to watch at their best. They're so well set up, and they're getting so much more from some of those players than what they should probably. Someone like Sorloth, like I said, he's probably not going to play, but even the games that he has played for them, he's looked quite far apart from his Crystal Palace days. So I would expect us to lose this one, but then again, crazy season, who knows?
Yeah, the one interesting thing is going to be now is that for me to play against that kind of team, the obvious midfield is Muck-Fred, but they've started 3 matches in a row now. Can they start a 4th match in a row? They were already looking pretty tired today. It's actually why I kind of expected he would make some kind of change today, and either Matic or Pogba were going to start, and then he would go back to that Muck-Fred midfield for Leipzig. Whereas now, I don't know. We have seen Ole be happy to kind of literally run players into the ground in the past, so it wouldn't be that much of a surprise if he goes with the same kind of 3 midfield again. But I don't know, Alex, what do you think? Maybe he'll go back to a back 5 again for this game.
Yeah, I think he will go for a back 5, and I think doing so allows him to maybe just have a Matic in the middle in front of them, and then maybe Pogba and Van der Beek ahead of that. I think he'll have a lot more confidence with Van der Beek playing a Champions League game, because it's a competition that he's got a lot of experience in. He knows the pace, he understands how those games work, the flow of them, the pressure and the tempo that you would expect to see. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was Van der Beek's first start. And I think if you are to have a 5 at the back, you don't quite need the same cover in front of them. And let's be fair, whilst Leipzig are a fantastic team by all accounts in terms of their efficiency and work ethic and whatnot, they're not a superstar studded PSG. So where he felt he needed a McFred to get about the likes of Neymar and Mbappe, he probably won't feel the same necessity. I'm just hoping, one of the few things that we haven't seen from Ole that would have been talked about Fergie as the mind games, and maybe it can all be won in that. I'm just hoping Ollie walks into his press conference and just opens a kind of monster in front of the mic just to get things talking and send a bit of a message.
I don't think it's really his style, is it? I don't think that's something we're going to see from him.
I'm obviously messing around. My expectation is that he would be similar today, be happy with a draw. I think when you get that away win in Paris, then it gives him the luxury of being able to play for a draw. On Wednesday, he wouldn't have had that luxury if we hadn't got that win last week. So I think he'll be more than happy to do so. And again, similar to what he was saying after today's game, he doesn't want to lose any momentum with another loss. He wants to build this up. And if it means building that up slowly with a couple of draws, and then we can go and hopefully get a win against Arsenal, I think he'd be looking to do that. So I think he'll be really wary of their capabilities. As much as I'm not going to suggest that he's a Nagelsmann, clearly he will have done his homework. And at United, we will have people whose job it is to go and research and scout opposition teams and to create various match reports and whatnot. I'm sure he will have some sort of plan in his head. And I'm sure some of the decisions that he made in terms of the lineup today, maybe even the likes of a Tellez, are probably with Wednesday in mind. So, it's going to be really interesting to see what we do. Obviously, Martial's back available for Wednesday. As well as Cavani now has some minutes under his belt. So I'll be quite interested to see what he does at the top end of the pitch as well as the bottom end.
I'm pretty sure Martial will start, even though he's not had a very good start to the season.
Well, he still can't play against Arsenal, right? So it would make sense to.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I wonder whether he would give Rashford a bit of a rest if that was the case, and perhaps start with Cavani and Martial, and because I think Rashford again was also maybe looking a little bit tired, so perhaps that's how he'll rotate things at the top.
Yeah, and it is quite an interesting thing now. At the end of last season, that was one of the things that we just knew what our best team was, and anybody else who came into it was kind of weakening us. Whereas we have got a decent squad now, a decent bench at least, even though we've probably not done enough to improve our first 11 in this transfer window. We have definitely improved our bench. And, when you see the likes of Pogba, Cavani coming in, you feel pretty confident that maybe they can do something from there. And there's still Van de Beek sat there. And like you say, Tellez isn't even there. Greenwood on the bench. When you saw the bench today, I thought this is one of the strongest benches we've had in like a long, long, long time. And, just in the terms of where the squad is, that is at least something positive for like going forward until we have the inevitable injury crisis, which we tend to have like every year at some point. So yeah, we'll just wait for that because it's surely coming. But all right, yeah, David thinks his man Nagelsmann is going to do one over. Let's see what happens after that. Don't know if we'll record straight after Leipzig, but definitely we'll be back after the Arsenal game, which we've not really had time to chat on. But as I say, Arsenal have had a decentish start to the season, and again, it's like a big game for us at the top of the table to be against somebody who's going to be one of our top 4 challengers. So yeah, we can't be messing around there, and we are going to have to win a couple of these matches. We'll say it's all right that we drew today against Chelsea, but to make up for those bad results that we started with, we are going to have to win some of these 6-pointers in there somewhere. So yeah, maybe Arsenal is the one to be going for.
Yeah, I just hope Dan James starts against Arsenal. That's all I'm after. So, fingers crossed.
How can he not? So yeah, all right. We'll see you guys back possibly after Leipzig, but yeah, definitely after Arsenal. And I'm glad we managed to fill an hour, even though, like I said, I was wondering what we were going to talk about after that game today. But we always, when we talk about Manchester United, time always goes faster than you think, right?
Correct.
Totally.
All right. Good night all, and see you next time.
See you guys.
Love you all.